Tyler, the Creator, is back with Chromakopia, his 7th studio album.
Now, I'm a very big fan of every Tyler, the Creator project up until this point, so my hopes are high. We've seen a couple of singles come out before this with some amazing music videos, which really show off Tyler's directing ability. So let's jump straight into the track listing.
Saint Chroma is up first. What did you think as an introduction to the album?
The marching used as a beat throughout the track was really inventive. I really enjoyed it. Initially, it was a little bit jarring. I thought it was going to kick into something, and it did. It paid off massively.
I thought that this was horrible.
Really?
I've really hated the whispering style bars. It just threw me off. When I first started listening to an album, I don't think that this painted a pretty picture. It felt a little bit all over the place to me. And just the whispering, I really didn't like it.
I think at around 1 minute 50, there's a beat switch up in classic Tyler style where he just comes in with, like, I want to say the most insane sounding beat you've ever heard, but that's a bit unfair. It just goes a bit crazy. And Tyler's flow and delivery on this track let you know that you're in for a treat with the rest of the album because it sounds like he's taking it back a bit.
I feel the production was good, and I really liked the production. There was layers to it, and I think that just the first half of the song where it wasn't proper bars ruined it for me. The last minute is where the bars come in, and I was like, all right, fair, this is good now. But when I'm starting to listen to an album and I really don't enjoy the first 2 minutes, it just threw me off a little bit. But we'll move on to Ratata.
What a transition. The transition from the previous track, made me question whether a new track had even started. I had to check, and I was like, oh, no, we are on to the next track now.
And I do think the flow throughout the album in that sense, especially as we get onto the later stages, was really good. Like, it worked as an album, as a piece of music. For me, this one was just okay. I thought there was a weird high-pitched noise that kept going on throughout the instrumental, which, again, really kind of took my focus away from the bars and what was going on in the track. But it was just an okay song.
I think it's important for artists to make sure that there isn't anything that's distracting from the rest of the song. And some of the like features of certain songs do that occasionally, but it's not anything that we've not seen from Tyler before. For me, the beat on this track goes hard, the flow is clean, and all round I enjoyed this track.
Noid is up next. Were you Noid?
Noid, I was not. I am. I don't know. This was one of the singles that came out from this album before it dropped. The music video for this was really good, and this got me hyped up for the album.
For some reason, this kind of, at the start, reminded me of Berserk, just because of the style of beat. And I always compare kind of a rocky type track to Berserk now, which is probably a problem in my own head more than an artist problem. But I like the way that this switched up the vibes. It had a very unique style instrumental, and I thought for me this was kind of the start of a good run on the album.
Yeah, this had a very classic Tyler feel to it, and it actually had Willow Smith providing the backing vocals, and we had Thundercat on the bass, which is why the bass throughout it sounded amazing.
Moving off that, we go on to Darling I. There was a weird mouth click throughout this. It was part of the beat that... And I was trying to work out for ages what song that was from, and it's an old Snoop song, isn't it? That uses something similar to that. Mm-hmm. But I was listening, I was like, where have I heard that before in a rap track? I thought this was good. I quite liked the fact that it was calm but energetic at the same time. I don't know, I feel like at this point in the album, I was sat listening and I was kind of wanting more still. Even at this, it felt like very safe, very, I'm Tyler, the Creator, this is what I do. And it does change a little bit throughout the album. I don't know if you felt the same.
For me, his flow is sounding so clean up until this point in the album. Like, every track so far, I've really enjoyed Tyler's flow. The delivery of his bars are absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I really liked this track. Very vibey, all-round good track.
I would say that for me, in comparison to the other songs we've heard so far, this felt like the first cohesive song where it kind of lined up as one track instead of, having beat switches, different things going on that were maybe a little bit too distracting. I thought that this was an actual song instead of just kind of a little bit all over the place. But Hey Jane, what did you think?
Always, always, always wear a condom.
Oh, Lord.
There's fantastic storytelling throughout this track. I adore it.
I thought that this flowed nicely from Darling I, and this was the point where I was like, okay, maybe we are getting that little bit of a flow, that little bit of a calm, collected presence from Tyler instead of it being the more old school, just like hype. I liked this track. It was obviously a deep topic around pregnancy and, having children and stuff. So I thought that this was a good note on the album.
There was a lot of, lyricism and things like that around fatherhood and parenting and kids, and it makes me question, has Tyler had a child that he's not informed anybody about, or is this just, the theme for the album?
Well, I thought that this was more about not wanting to have a child when he was younger and how he processed that. Maybe there was someone that was pregnant at one point in his life, or the pressures of becoming a father from family members kind of comes up later in the album. I think that this was a bit of like a reflective and coming of age track where he's looking back at his past experiences and like, did I deal with that correctly?
Moving off that, we go into I Killed You. This had a really interesting drum beat carrying throughout, and there was the odd simplistic acoustic guitar that I think really added a nice little pizzazz to the track.
I liked the minimalistic style drum beat. I thought we needed that. We needed a little bit of calm, and they did it well. They executed it well. It felt unique still, but not in a forced way.
And in a common way with Tyler tracks, around the midsection, the beat goes crazy and Tyler starts going crazy with the lyrics. And I think it worked very nicely. And surprisingly, Donald Glover is a writer for this track, along with Tyler himself. So
you're pulling out all the facts. You're pulling out all the.
Oh, I've got the stat sheet here, bro.
But Judge Judy up next. I thought the flow between this and the previous song was really good again. This period of the album I really enjoyed, because for me the start of the album felt completely hectic and all over the place, and then for this little run I was like, okay, it's flowing nicely. We've got nice bars. We've got a nice little bit of singing going on. What did you think of this?
I think I want Judge Judy. That's what I know. Great track name. Used to love the show. The track all around is really good. It's a much chiller track, but it actually features Childish Gambino this time, rather than him being a writer.
I would say that this went on a little bit too long, though. By the end of this, I was thinking, all right, maybe it's time to move off of this song now.
I think this song kind of merges Gambino and Tyler's styles really nicely, and instead of me wanting to bob my head to it, it kind of made me want to sway, if you know what I mean. It kind of gave me a different vibe entirely. And I wasn't the biggest fan of Tyler's flow on this track, but the instrumental for this was phenomenal. I really liked the instrumental.
And we move off onto Sticky, which was a unique, interesting, funny. I really liked this. I don't know how to describe it, but after the last few calm songs, this was a change in direction that I thought was needed, but it was so fun.
I did not expect to hear Lil Wayne on this track. His vocal mix was a little bit mid though, but then we also had features from Glorilla and Sexy Red, which is a star-studded feature list.
I really like the trumpets in the instrumentals throughout. I thought, especially in the latter end of the song, the trumpets really added a lot, added another layer, and made me take notice of this track in comparison to a lot of the other songs in the album. I thought it did a good job of that.
For me, this is one of the high points of the album. I really enjoyed this track. But moving off that, we go on to Take Your Mask Off. And let me just say, transition into this track again, amazing.
Yeah, he does that well throughout. And I thought that this brought us back to those chill vibes, but it was more meaningful bars. It made me kind of listen to what was being said, and it was just straight bars, really.
The bass line in this is mwah, chef's kiss. I cannot fault it whatsoever. It's a very lo-fi beat over the top of it. It's a lot chiller. There's a very clean flow throughout. Great delivery as per. An amazing track.
But we move off that onto Tomorrow, and for me, this kind of brought it down a little bit. Out of the more chill tracks, I thought this was probably a low point. Obviously, there's a lot more focus on singing, especially in the first half of this song, and Tyler's not the best singer.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of this track. It kind of felt a bit too slow for me. I'm not a big fan of that kind of music anyway. I didn't really have much more to say other than it brought the vibes.
I thought that it could have been better. Do you know, with the instrumental, with the topic about family life and stuff, I thought that this could have been executed in a way in which was a high point on the album, but instead it really let me down. We'll move off that onto Thought I Was Dead.
We had a cheeky Schoolboy Q feature on this one. I know this is another rap album where he hasn't credited any of the features yet, but I don't know if in a week's time or so they'll update the track list and actually show who was on those tracks.
I thought that this really brought the energy up in a positive way. We needed that, and the album has done a good job of doing that throughout, where I'm kind of thinking to myself, all right, we've had a few chill moments, and then it goes boom, here you go. This had me bobbing my head, kind of jiving along, really enjoyed it.
It's one of my favourite singles to drop from the album, and I'd say it's potentially one of my favourite tracks from the album now that it's been fully released. In classic Tyler style, he goes absolutely crazy with the experimental, disgusting beat throughout. I really enjoy it. We move off that onto Like Him.
This was a strange one. This was more singing in a weird way with a lot more focus on the instrumental. The vocals were really quite quiet and drowned out throughout this. I didn't really know how to feel about it, and I still don't. What did you think?
So I respect these kind of tracks because I know that they help to break up an album and make it flow nicer, but for me, it's just not my style at all. I know Tyler's done a couple of heartfelt tracks in this style in the past, but again, for me, I'd say it was a bit of a miss.
I thought the last third of the song where the instrumental got a bit more energy, it had a bit more substance in the last section, but up to that point I was thinking, oh, come on now, I'm a bit bored of this, and we move on to Balloon.
Do you not think the initial beat for this sounded like something you'd hear off like a kid's TV show or something?
Do you know what it is? I don't know why. That initial piano kind of synth, like couple keys, had me really hyped. I was thinking this could be fire, but it never really kicked in. It had potential to boot off this song, and it just didn't. It really disappointed me in the end. It wasn't a bad track, but when I heard those first couple keys, I thought, oh, this could be really cool. And it didn't live up to that hype.
And then it kicks in with the Pop That sample, which I think is from French Montana's Pop That, but I don't know if he then sampled it off somebody else. But as far as I can tell, it was French Montana Pop That. And that was a little bit weird to hear in his album because he's not really used any vocal samples up until this point, not massively anyway. And I'd never heard of Doechii before this track, but her feature goes hard, and when she starts like ramping up her flow, the beat starts to ramp up with it, and I think that works so nicely.
I thought that this was okay, but it really left me wanting more, to be honest. And I felt like that with a few tracks where I was like, if this took a slight direction, maybe it had a little bit more oomph to it, it'd be really good.
One bar I want to point out on this track is I air this bitch out like a queef. I just thought, excuse me, what? And after that I thought, I hope you find your way home.
The introduction to this was really strange. Singing and barking. And actually barking has been a theme throughout this album. There's been a fair bit of background barking.
You fucking hate barking, you do.
No, I don't mind. I thought it was weirdly entertaining, but it was a strange way to introduce the last song on the album. But I thought the song as a whole did a good job of, you know, we go back to those kind of more calmer vibes, but a deeper topic. And I thought that this closed the album out quite nicely.
I thought it was quite a beautiful track, really. I actually really enjoyed it. Tyler's flow and delivery are very, I want to say the word visceral. They're very, they feel real, and I really enjoy that. And the chanting of Chromakopia at the end kind of seals off the album as a whole. He has mentioned the album title a few times throughout it, but I think
a few times,
yeah. I think this is a great way to end it, and yeah, it sent out very nicely.
Onto the album as a whole, I've actually weirdly not enjoyed speaking about this.
Oh!
I know that sounds really strange, but do you know when you listen to something and you really can't quite work out where you stand on it? Like a lot of the tracks, I'm like, I liked elements, but at the same time, I really disliked certain elements, and I've just not I don't know what to say about it. I don't know where I stand, but where do you stand, young Timothy?
For me, Tyler does not miss, and he has not missed with this album again. He's got such a solid discography that I don't think there's many people that can stand up to his like level of production throughout. Something that we can touch on is the production throughout the album, which is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I do think there was a lot of good, unique style beats that went in a lot of different directions. I'm not sure how much Tyler's involved in the production itself, is he?
I imagine somewhat, yeah. He's a very creative guy, and I feel like the work that he puts out, he likes to have a lot of control over. So I imagine he is a big part of it.
But I would say that this is a very introspective album. In a strange way, although it's his 7th album, I think that this is the most introspective coming-of-age album from Tyler. A lot of the topics he touches on family life, pregnancy, having the possibility of having children, etc. I liked that, and I liked that he was exploring those topics in this manner.
Yeah, there was a lot of ups and downs for the tracks and how he was going about explaining his current situation and thoughts that he was having. And I think it going like this throughout the album in terms of tempo and beats and just vocals in general worked really nicely to create a cohesive project. But the instrumentals across this, I would say, are probably a lot safer than the past couple of albums that we've had. I mean, his first couple are absolutely insane for instrumentals, but he has kind of dialed it back a little bit. But this felt like he was trying to play it much more radio friendly, I want to say. Maybe that wasn't his, maybe he was just making it more listener friendly. But to me, he could have gone a little bit more ham.
I thought it was a bit strange. My listening experience with this album, I really didn't enjoy the first couple tracks because of how all over the place they were, and they kind of felt like experiments. But then by the end of the album, I was getting quite bored of the chill vibes. So this is what I mean when I say I can't pinpoint what it is, but for me, this album just had something missing. I don't know what it was, but on the album, what would you rate it out of 10?
My rating for this album, for Chromakopia by Tyler, the Creator, is a strong 7.5.
7.5.
7.5.
That is quite high. My album rating is a 6.
A 6?
Yeah, I thought there was really good moments, but there was a lot of songs where I was left wanting more, or I just didn't particularly enjoy them.
I would say that this probably isn't Tyler's best project, but it is by far not his worst.
I think I would agree with that, but I also think once I've listened to it a few more times and had time to dive into some of those deeper lyrics and deeper meanings behind some of the tracks, maybe this is one that could go up in my estimations, and it is one I will re-listen to. So maybe a 6 is quite harsh, but just off the first listen or two, it just didn't really capture me in the way that I wanted it to.
Fair enough. Can't say fairer than that.
Well, if you enjoyed this review and enjoy music as a whole, remember to hit like and subscribe. We review all the big albums that come out and even take a deep dive into some previous albums from massive artists.
Thanks very much for watching.